Hello, greetings, YouTube and Telegram family. I'll put this on Telegram. Hi, hello. Welcome to spring. It's finally warm here. Oh my gosh. So, just take a moment to settle into your vibration before I get started. Breath, make a sound, do some humming, drumming, singing, whatever it is. All right. Thanks for doing that. Hug yourself too. I'm going to give myself a hug. Okay, so I'll start with that part first, the feminine agenda. So, let's see. It's not the feminine agenda. It is the attack. I see it as a direct attack on the divine feminine. So what we're experiencing, what is happening in the world. So if you don't know what's happening in China, is there are massive lockdowns still going on in relation to the stuff that they say is so deadly, right? But there's been proof it's not deadly. But what's happening over there is definitely an oppression of spirit in general. Okay. Here in the United States, we've just experienced the reversal court with abortion. And I'm going to talk about some controversial things where that's concerned. So trigger warning for those of you who might have some real emotional attachments or feelings about the subject. But the ultimate is it's an attack on the feminine divine. It's an attack on the right to your autonomy. And this isn't just the females, but it's the feminine divine energy, okay? So this my theory is that the Mayan calendar, from what they tell us, right? Because we're only getting so much information. Like most of the information that we're even taught in schools is filtered. It's filtered for control. It's filtered to continue trauma bonds and this whole narcissistic, codependent relationship that most of us are in, either with ourselves and someone personally that we know, whether it's family, friend, or relationship, and or with governments, with jobs, with our taxes and things like that, even through religion. Okay. So with this, we've been seeing it. I talked a little bit about it in the trans agenda video where it's very when it comes to abortion and abortion rights. So I swear my dog drinks the water while I'm talking because he wants me to pay attention to him. He was quiet and laying down until I started doing the video, but no surprise there. First it began with the mandates and masks and such like that, right? And what I call virtue signaling. So what ends up happening, and when this first started, I used to say to people, like, you don't ask people if they've ever had an abortion because it's their body and it's none of your business, right? And it creates what happens if somebody does actually ask that question and you answer honestly. Depending on where you reside in your own moral decisions and in your own body autonomy, there can be all different kinds of people have broken up family members and all kinds of things due to these kinds of decisions. Well, in my study of the goddess and of nature, infanticide was something that used to be practiced many, many years ago. And it was a survival tactic. It wasn't something that was considered murder. Okay. We didn't, we didn't, there was a time when murder wasn't even a concept in our minds to to have the willing intent to take the life from somebody else, because we were educated differently. We weren't educated in a world like this one that actually requires a lack of emotional knowledge so that your emotions can be manipulated to their whims and needs rather than your actual needs, right? So, with infanticide, there were many different ways that women would practice this, or the communities would practice this. And it was with the community also. So there was support involved, okay? There was no magic involved. It wasn't something ritualistic. It was just, it came down to, we were very nomadic at a time in our world. And when we were not nomadic, meaning when we were more stable and living in just one area, different reasons would come about to need infanticide. And if you don't know what that means, that basically means the killing of children, okay? Which I don't like to say at all because of this world and how it is, but this was something that was left up to the mothers in the community, and it was never like the way that even the energies that we have within us now in saying that were not there then, because if there was ritual, it was in honor of the life of the child, but it would be for reasons of the survival of the entire community, because that was what was important. It wasn't just one child, or even two, or even three. It was the whole community. And this was something that I actually think that name was given by patriarchs because the energy of it in the beginning was not that. I don't know how to put it into words, because we live in a world now where things like that are very maniacal and malicious, rather than with a spiritual understanding around community. So, with that said, I learned that in my studies. I was kind of surprised, but then I wasn't surprised. And then if you want to even jump to a more civilized, quote unquote, or more modern culture, the Egyptians used to use a certain plant to keep from getting pregnant. And I know through massage, Reiki, and not Reiki, massage, acupressure, and acupuncture, that there are certain spots on your body that you give pressure to, and you can induce a miscarriage, or a spontaneous abortion is the other name for it. Okay. So we have that within the community, that there was a basic understanding. It wasn't something that was considered evil or malicious. It was like an endearing practice for the community. It's the best way I can describe it in today's words. Okay, then I'm going to move into today in the United States and abortion. So, when it comes to our own bodies, and our own decisions. That's what it should be. When me as an adopted person, one of the gaslights I used to get often and still hear sometimes, and now realize it's a gaslight because I didn't see it as a gaslight, because this is how our world is, and this is how it works with your emotions and your like mental relation to virtues and morals. Okay, people used to say to me, well, you're lucky your mom didn't get an abortion. You know who's lucky they didn't get an abortion is my mom. Because if she had gotten an abortion, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I would not have existed, or my soul and spirit would have went to another family to come here, right? Obviously, somehow I knew I would come to fruition, so I chose that mother. But when we negate a possibility in the perception of today's world, it's very selfish, because the only person in any decision about their body is that person. The abortion isn't about the child that may or may not exist. It's about the parent and their situation, the mother. And we don't live in a world that is supportive of that at all. And if it is, there is not a lot of healing that comes with it, because abortions really wreck your body. Just like having a baby can wreck your body. And then what happens afterwards? Let's just say you do have the child, and you now, let's just say you didn't have a job in the first place. And so now what do you have to do? You have to kind of depend on the government to give you aid to take care of that child. Well, there's a bunch of people in this country that will shame and guilt people who are dependent on the government. And these can be the same people who are yelling for no abortions. Where's the balance here? You are claiming to support life. However, there are many lives right now out there who need support. Mothers and their children who need support, who decided not to get an abortion. They still need support, so they're not, and then they become like the lazy person who never gets a job. Their job is being a parent. Like, what? And there should be some kind of way that we work as a community so that we can support all these things. Like, oh my goodness. And now formula, I don't know if people know, but because of what's going on in the world, there's a shortage of formula. And I mean, oh my goodness. Can't people see this underlying attack on the feminine divine? All of the nurturers, the caregivers, because they're not always women, had to change their jobs and start teaching their kids from home for 2 years because of lockdowns. And they were supposed to get compensated. They did not get compensated. A lot of people, I mean, we talk about preserving life. Mental health is part of preserving life. Like, we only seem to stem from a moral perspective without the actions required after it to help support these people. So what I see this is exactly that. It's to shape a virtue signaling type energy about children, while focusing on unborn children, while not giving enough attention and protection and support to already living children. And what that does is it creates a hopelessness. And if you are forcing women into having children, I mean, and where is the male's responsibility in this? And we're talking about like rape victims, incest victims, still have to have that child. What is going on here? It's an attack on the feminine. It's attack on the psyche of the power of community and the female, especially when she's in her power, which is obviously being, in those circumstances where it's incest or rape. Where's her power? She has no power? What is this? And these are males creating these laws, and I'm suspecting that these are suspicious ideals. Okay. The solution. So the solution is that some of the things I said. What will happen? What's going to end up happening are people are going to be getting more massages and requesting certain types of massage. Or is that going to probably going to affect the massage community and any type of healing community where you can go outside of the mainstream, medicine. And I think this has something to do with the jab and the possibility of what kind of children will be created. It's just, even what's happening with like 5G, I don't know if you guys have felt it, but now on certain days when I go into town, I get a headache. I'm pretty positive it's 5G because once I come home and step away from it, the headache goes away. Also, I could be dehydrated. I will own that. All right, so that's some really deep and not awesome stuff to talk about, but while we're being focused on that and people are talking about that or fighting about it and thinking that it's a good thing, it's what it's going to create is what it created before. Only this time we're going to solidify that law, and it will, I believe the law will become one of body autonomy. Meaning, if you want to change your sex, because are you kidding me? What is the difference? What's the difference between someone changing their gender and deciding not to have children than somebody not actually carrying a birth to term because there's a life inside there? Well, there's so many other things we do in the world. We eat meat. There's meat everywhere in the store. How come, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, there's a difference between a human and an animal, but also we're extending the right to decide what is right and wrong based on other people's choices, which is, I don't think, okay, personally. And it strips the spirit of questioning and autonomy, you being who you are. It's a way of doing it. It doesn't actually do it, but it is the intention. The agenda is to pull that away from people. Okay, so now we're going to move into the moon. We're going to talk about the moon real quickly. I don't have much time left on this video. I think the moon energy kind of fits in with everything that's going on in the 9-day calendar. Okay, so here's something interesting. According to my calculations, the eclipse, okay, they're saying that it's tonight. Oh, I see. That makes sense. Okay. So that helped me figure something out, actually, because according to my calculations, tomorrow it says it's a full moon and the lunar eclipse, but that's actually tonight, which leads into tomorrow, into the AM. But by tomorrow night, it will be a waning gibbous moon. Okay. So the full moon actually began yesterday on Saturday or late Friday night. All right. And the planet we're in today is Neptune. Today is Sunday. Okay. So, according to my 9-day calculations. Okay. And so I mentioned it before, and I've done a whole video about the 9-day, and I called it the 9-day moon calendar. Now I'm just calling it a 9-day calendar. The planet order I have is, so I looked at it as The sun and the moon are not part of it. They're not planets. Okay. So it starts with Earth, and then it goes Mercury, because Mercury is, and I went in order of the closest to farthest planet, which just so happens to match how they do it in astrology, which I didn't do on purpose, but found that out. Okay. So it goes Earth, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Pluto being the last day. Okay. So today is Neptune. Tomorrow would be Pluto, which would be the last day, which is also linked to the lunar eclipse. So the story of a lunar eclipse, if you don't know what a lunar eclipse is, it's when the Earth is in front of the sun, so it blocks the moon, supposedly, is the story. And depending on where the sun is, creates a different color and energy for the moon. Okay? And I'm guessing reflection. So when it's like a red moon, you would imagine that the Earth's atmosphere is reflecting more of a reddish color from the sun onto we have a reddish color, which is being reflected to the moon, which is why we call it blood moon. Okay. Or see that kind of color, or there's different colors, but I don't know what color this one would be. I think most of them end up being kind of like an orangey reddish color if you look at them. Anyhow, so that energy would be there, and then astrologically they're saying that we're in a Saturn Scorpio energy. Okay, well, without me totally including that, although the first day of the first moon was on what we call Saturday, but Saturn actually landed on Friday the 13th. When this started, it was Uranus, which was Saturday. Today being Sunday, Neptune. So a lot of emotions, deep emotions. And if you connect this to the eclipse, it will be a showing of deep emotions coming to the surface within the emotions will come to the surface and probably service to you and your greatest good by coming to the surface. But with knowledge, like you will be able to understand why these emotions are showing up. It will be less of confusion, being like, I don't understand why I feel this way. You'll be able to actually say, I understand why I feel this way. And it's propelling us with this lunar eclipse. So a lunar full moon is typically one that brings light in the darkness. So what this one will do is bring an ending to certain things that were done in the dark, is what I'm just now hearing, and an illumination towards the future. Okay. And then what was the other thing I wanted to mention? Okay, I'm going to talk. Oh, so recently, Miss Deborah Speaks, has mentioned that I know a lot about the moon, and I've been studying about the moon. I know some about the moon, and I've actually learned a lot from her about the moon that I've been questioning. So I will share this information with you guys just in kind of relation. So studying the goddess is kind of what keeps bringing me to different revelations. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I heard a message that the moon was older than the sun. And there is actually scientific evidence of this. However, like I said in the beginning, is there scientific evidence of that? Or is it just something they're telling us? Because what they tell us isn't always the complete truth or all of the information. But through that, I've loved this creation that we live in. I love the moon and the stars. I think it's amazing that there's the cycle and that you can see the stars and sometimes they move, and I just think it's beautiful, just beautiful. And I really like the sun, and I can remember as a kid how the sun was totally different than it is today. And I've definitely seen that there are three suns, that there is a central sun and that there is a dark sun. I've seen the blue sun that Deborah has talked about. I've seen the black sun, and I've seen this uniquely different colored sun also. I've often wondered about that. So I think it's highly possible that these things are not what they seem, not what they're teaching us. So, what I have learned about the moon is it has an 18-year cycle, which equals 9. It has a 9-day cycle. It has days of 3 and then 9, which is, I find, astounding. But it has actually 18.6, right? So you're still looking at 9 and 6, which ends up equaling 6, right? And then that is where I started looking more into numbers, learning more about numbers, and realizing that from what I understand from the giant spell that's on the planet and through numbers, that angles are related to numbers, and that 7 is actually an angled number, whereas 9, 6, and 3 are rounded numbers, and they represent more of the feminine, and the other numbers represent more of a angled. I don't know if it's masculine, because it could be, but to me, angles are can be trapping. Okay, so we come to now with the moon. Recently, I just shared with Deborah that I was gifted a book called The Language of the Goddess, and I went in to see if there's anything about the moon, and there isn't. And mostly in that book, it's very anthropologically and archaeologically old, ancient. Like the chevron angles are related to the goddess. Many of the things that I spoke about in like the symbols, they're all in that book. I hadn't even looked all the way through that book, but they're all in that book. Okay, but the moon is not. Animals are, birds, water, earth, and the woman in the womb, but nothing about the moon. So I thought that was very interesting. Okay. So I myself was very passionate about like what's going on in the United States, and I want to keep sharing information about the moon and its cycles and how it relates to the feminine, and also how it could possibly relate to agendas and hidden knowledge that is not shared with us. Many people have said that it's like people are living on it. Different countries have, space programs up there, or actual, neighborhoods and such up there, or military places up there, and that it's hollow, that somebody lives in it, and I'm now at a place where like everybody can't be totally making that up. You know what I mean? None of these people know each other. They're all coming from their own interpretation. So what that tells me is that we're capable of building moons and planets, and they don't want us to know that. Because what? Also, there is a rumor that by telling us those things, we are limiting ourselves, and that could be like a 3-letter agenda to keep us from learning more about what we're capable of. I don't know. Is it all true? Maybe. All right, I'm almost out of time. So that's my major information about the agenda and the moon. healing tips. Colloidal silvers come back into my memory again, so I'll share that one with you. So colloidal silver is, you can make it, you can look online on how to make it, but you can also purchase it. Sometimes it's fairly expensive, but worth it, because a little goes a long way. You can gargle it, you can drink it, and you can apply it to wounds. It helps with bacteria, with your immune system, and with